Dr. Lee Nari stared at the massive screen in the Global Defense Center as alien ships appeared above every major city on Earth. The ships were enormous, each one the size of a mountain, floating silently in the sky like dark clouds of death. She had been called to the emergency meeting because of her work in quantum physics and her background in military strategy. Now she wished she had stayed home. "They're not responding to any of our signals," General Martinez said, his voice shaking. "We've tried everything, radio, laser, even mathematical sequences. Nothing." Nari watched as world leaders argued over video calls displayed on dozens of screens around the room. The President of the United States was shouting at the Chinese premier. The European Union representatives were talking over each other. Everyone was panicking, and nobody was listening. Then the ship spoke. A voice came from every speaker, every television, every phone on Earth at the same time. It was cold and mechanical, but somehow she knew it wasn't a machine talking. "People of Earth, we are the Kirvani Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have two choices: serve us willingly or be destroyed. You have 72 hours to surrender all weapons and government authority to our representatives." The room fell silent. Nari felt her stomach drop as she realized what this meant. Humanity had just received an ultimatum from beings with technology far beyond anything they possessed. And from the looks on everyone's faces, they were going to handle it badly. "We need to negotiate," the British Prime Minister said over the video link. "Find out what they want, what we can offer them." "Negotiate?" The Russian president laughed, bitterly. "They just told us to surrender or die. What is there to negotiate?" "We should attack first," General Kim from South Korea suggested. "Show them we won't go down without a fight." "With what?" General Martinez snapped. "Our best missiles probably can't even scratch those ships. And they're positioned over our biggest cities. One wrong move and millions die." Nari listened to the arguments growing louder and more desperate. These people were supposed to be the smartest, most powerful leaders on Earth, but they were acting like scared children. Some wanted to fight immediately. Others wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. A few suggested hiding underground and waiting for the aliens to leave. She looked at her phone and saw 17 missed calls from her childhood friend Park Min-ho. He worked for the government's cybersecurity division, and if he was trying to reach her this desperately, it meant he had found something important. "Excuse me?" she said quietly, but nobody heard her over the shouting. She slipped out of the room and called Min-ho back. "Nari, thank God." His voice was urgent. "I've been trying to reach you for hours. You need to see this. Can you get to my lab?" "Min-ho, in case you haven't noticed, we're kind of in the middle of an alien invasion right now. That's exactly why you need to see this. I've been monitoring our network since the ships appeared. Nari, they've been in our systems for months, maybe longer. They know everything. Our military capabilities, our government structures, our weaknesses. This wasn't a surprise attack. This was a planned execution." Nari felt a chill run down her spine. "How long can you stay in your lab?" "I'm not leaving. Someone needs to document this. If we're all going to die, at least there should be a record of how it happened." She made her decision. "I'm coming to you, and I'm bringing someone." 20 minutes later, Nari arrived at Min-ho's underground laboratory with Dr. Kim So-jin, a xenobiologist she had worked with on several projects. So-jin was one of the few people who had been studying the possibility of alien life seriously, and her expertise might be crucial now. Min-ho's lab looked like a war zone. Dozens of monitors showed streams of data, network traffic, and security alerts. Empty coffee cups and food containers covered every surface. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Show us what you found," Nari said. Min-ho pulled up a series of charts and graphs. "Look at this. 3 months ago, we started seeing unusual patterns in our internet traffic. Small things at first, tiny delays in data transmission, minor glitches in satellite communications. I thought it was just normal network issues. He switched to another screen. But then I started tracking the patterns. They weren't random. Someone was mapping our entire digital infrastructure, learning how everything connected. Every power, grid, every communication system, every military network. So Jin leaned forward. They were studying us. More than that, Minho continued. They were preparing. Look at this data from the past week. They've been positioning themselves to take control of our systems at any moment. They could shut down our power, disable our communications, even take control of our weapons if they wanted to. Nari stared at the data, her mind racing. But they haven't done it yet. Why? Because they don't need to, Sojin said quietly. They're giving us time to surrender voluntarily. It's more efficient than fighting a war. Nari thought about the chaos in the defense center, the arguing leaders, the complete lack of coordination. And we're making it easy for them. Look at us. We can't even agree on what to do, let alone actually do it. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. Even though it was daytime, she could see the dark shape of one of the alien ships, hanging over the city like a sword waiting to fall. For the first time since the crisis began, she felt something other than fear. She felt angry. We need to do something, she said. Like what? Minho asked. We're 3 people in a basement. What can we possibly do against an interstellar empire? Nari turned back to face them. We can do what our leaders can't. We can think clearly, we can work together, and we can use the one advantage they haven't taken away from us yet. Which is? She pointed at Minho's wall of computers. They've been studying our networks, but they don't control them. Not yet. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's adapting, quickly when our survival is at stake. So Jin frowned. You're talking about some kind of resistance movement. I'm talking about something bigger than that. Nari's voice grew stronger as the idea formed in her mind. Our governments are paralyzed because they're thinking like governments, worried about politics, territorial rights, chain of command. But this isn't a political problem. This is a survival problem, and it needs to be solved by people who understand that. Minho was staring at her with a mixture of admiration and fear. Nari, what exactly are you suggesting? She looked at both of her friends, these brilliant people who had dedicated their lives to understanding how the world worked. Now they might be the key to saving it. I'm suggesting that if our leaders won't act, then we need to become the leaders. We need to take control ourselves, coordinate a response ourselves, and show these aliens that humanity isn't as helpless as they think. The room fell silent except for the humming of computers. Outside, the alien ship continued its silent watch over the city. In 60 hours, the ultimatum would expire. And somewhere in that basement, 3 humans began planning to change the course of history. Nari spent the next 18 hours working without sleep. Her fingers flew across 3 different keyboards while she explained her plan to Minho and Sojin. What she was proposing seemed impossible, but as she laid out each step, it began to make sense. The AI I've been developing isn't just for quantum computing anymore, she said, pointing to lines of code scrolling across her screen. I've been teaching it to adapt, to learn from patterns and make decisions. I call it Phoenix. Minho leaned over her shoulder, reading the code. This is incredible work, but it's still just a program. How can it help us against an alien empire? Because Phoenix doesn't think like us, Nari explained. Humans get emotional, make mistakes, argue with each other. Phoenix sees only data and the most efficient path to a goal. And right now, our goal is simple. Unite every system on Earth under one. Command structure before the aliens take control themselves. So Jin looked worried. You're talking about taking over the entire world's technology. That's not just illegal, it's necessary, Nari finished. Look, in 54 hours, those ships up there are going to start killing people. Our governments are still arguing about who should be in charge of the response. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, she found a simple text. We need to talk. Captain Choi Hyun-woo, Korean Space Defense Force. Min-ho saw her expression change. What is it? Someone wants to meet us. She showed them the phone. Captain Choi was in the news last month. He's the one who argued that South Korea needed better space defenses. The government ignored him. How did he get your number? So-jin asked. Before Nari could answer, the phone rang. She put it on speaker. Dr. Lee, my name is Hyun-woo. I apologize for contacting you like this, but I've been monitoring government communications. I know what you're thinking about doing. I don't know what you mean, Nari said carefully. You're planning to take control of Earth's networks using an advanced AI system. You want to coordinate a global response without waiting for the politicians to stop arguing. His voice was calm and professional. I want to help. The three friends looked at each other. Finally, Nari spoke. Assuming you're right about what we're thinking, why would you want to help? Because I've seen what our official response looks like. I've been in the military long enough to know the difference between real leadership and political theater. What we need right now is someone willing to make the hard choices quickly. And you think we can do that? I think you're the only ones who can. Dr. Lee, your work in quantum physics is legendary. Mr. Park, you've been protecting our networks from cyber attacks for years. Dr. Kim, your research into extreme life forms is exactly what we need to understand these aliens. Together, you represent more real expertise than half the people in those government meetings. Nari made a decision. Where do you want to meet? 2 hours later, they were sitting in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. Captain Choi had brought 3 other people with him, all military personnel who had been quietly preparing for exactly this kind of situation. They had vehicles, weapons, portable communication equipment, and most importantly, detailed maps of military installations across South Korea. The Korean Space Defense Force was officially disbanded last year, Hyun-woo explained. Budget cuts, but some of us never really stopped working. We've been developing contingency plans for scenarios just like this one. He spread a map across the table. These are secure locations where we can set up command centers. They're off the grid, powered by independent generators, and shielded against electromagnetic interference. If you're going to take control of global networks, you'll need places to work where the aliens can't find you. So-jin had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. I've been analyzing the debris from the alien probe ships that crashed near Busan yesterday. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has weaknesses. Everyone turned to look at her. What kind of weaknesses? They rely heavily on centralized control systems. Each ship appears to be controlled by a main computer that coordinates everything: weapons, shields, navigation. It's very efficient, but it also means that if you can disrupt that central control, the entire ship becomes vulnerable. Nari felt a spark of excitement. That's the same weakness in our own systems that Min-ho identified. They're used to fighting enemies who think like they do, centralized, hierarchical, predictable. But humans don't fight that way, Hyun-woo said, understanding immediately. We improvise, we adapt, we work in small groups that can operate independently. Exactly. Nari pulled out her laptop and began typing. Phoenix is designed to coordinate multiple independent systems, not control them directly. Instead of one central command giving orders to everyone, we can have thousands of small groups all working toward the same goal, sharing information instantly, but making their own tactical decisions. Over the next 6 hours, they laid out the framework for something that had never been attempted in human history. Nari would deploy Phoenix across the internet, not to take control of systems, but to create a communication network that could coordinate every computer, every smartphone, every connected device on Earth. Min-ho would handle the technical challenges of penetrating secure networks without being detected. So-jin would analyze alien technology and develop countermeasures. Hyun-woo would build a network of military personnel and civilians who could act as local coordinators. We'll need to move fast, Nari said as she finished uploading Phoenix to a network of distributed servers. Once we start this, there's no going back. The governments will try to stop us, the aliens will try to stop us, and if we fail, humanity probably dies. What about after? Sojin asked. If we succeed in defeating the aliens, what happens to all this power you're taking? Nari paused, her finger hovering over the enter key that would launch Phoenix into the global network. It was a good question. What she was about to do would fundamentally change how human civilization operated. She would have control over every aspect of modern life: power grids, communication systems, financial networks, transportation, even the basic infrastructure that kept cities running. I don't know, she said honestly. Right now, I'm focused on making sure there is an after. We can figure out the rest later. She pressed enter. Across the world, Phoenix began to wake up. It started small, a few test connections, checking the status of various networks, learning the patterns of global data flow. But within minutes, it was growing exponentially, spreading through fiber optic cables and wireless signals, touching every connected device on the planet. The alien ships continued their silent watch over Earth's cities, waiting for humanity's leaders to surrender. They had no idea that deep in a warehouse in Seoul, a small group of humans had just lit the fuse that would change everything. Phoenix was awake, and it was learning fast. Phoenix worked faster than Nari had ever imagined possible. Within 12 hours of its release, the AI had mapped every major network on Earth. It moved like water, flowing through connections that human hackers never could have found, learning the structure of global civilization in real time. It's beautiful, Minho whispered, watching streams of data flow across his monitors. Look at this. Phoenix isn't breaking into systems, it's learning how they want to work and then optimizing them. Power grids are running more efficiently than they have in years. Nari nodded, but her attention was focused on a different screen. The government networks are more challenging. Phoenix can access them, but if we start changing things too quickly, someone will notice. How much time do we have? Hyunwoo asked. 36 hours until the alien deadline. But the real question is how long until the world leaders realize what's happening. She got her answer 24 hours later. The President of the United States was the first to notice. He was in the middle of a secure video conference with other world leaders when every screen in the White House Situation Room suddenly went black. Then a new image appeared, Nari's face, broadcasting simultaneously to every government facility on Earth. Leaders of Earth, she said calmly. My name is Dr. Lee Nari. For the past 48 hours, you have been debating how to respond to the alien threat while your people live in fear. During that same time, I have taken control of every critical system on this planet. In Moscow, President Volkov tried to call his military commanders, but the phones wouldn't connect. In Beijing, Premier Li discovered that none of his computers would respond to commands. In London, the Prime Minister found that even the lights in his office would only turn on when Nari's broadcast allowed them to. This is impossible, General Martinez said in Washington, trying frantically to regain control of his systems. No one person could take over everything this quickly. On screen, Nari seemed to hear him. You're right, General. One person couldn't do this. But I'm not alone, and I'm not using ordinary methods. The artificial intelligence coordinating this operation has capabilities that your security experts never imagined. She paused, letting that sink in. Around the world, government officials were realizing that their most secure systems had been penetrated without triggering a single alarm. I want to be very clear about something, Nari continued. I have not hurt anyone. Your power grids are running better than before. Your communication systems are more efficient. Your transportation networks are operating smoothly. The only thing that has changed is who controls them. This is treason, the British Prime Minister shouted at his screen. You're staging a coup against every government on Earth. No, Nari said firmly. I'm saving our species. You have spent 3 days arguing while alien ships hang over our cities. You have shown no leadership, no coordination, no plan. In 18 hours, those ships will begin destroying everything we have built. I will not let that happen because you couldn't make a decision." She leaned forward and her voice became harder. "From this moment forward, Earth operates under unified command. The Unified Earth Command will coordinate all military forces, all resources, and all responses to the alien threat. Anyone who interferes with this mission will find their systems unresponsive." To prove her point, Phoenix simultaneously shut down power to government buildings in 12 different countries for exactly 60 seconds. When the lights came back on, the message was clear. Resistance was futile. But Nari wasn't finished. Her image appeared on every television, every computer screen, every smartphone on the planet. Billions of people stopped what they were doing to listen. "People of Earth," she said, and now her voice carried a warmth that hadn't been there when addressing the leaders. "I know you're afraid. I know this seems impossible. Giant alien ships are demanding our surrender, and now a stranger has taken control of the world's technology. You have every right to be confused and scared." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But I want you to know something. For the first time since this crisis began, someone is actually doing something about it. Not arguing, not debating, not waiting for someone else to make the hard choices. Acting." Images appeared on screens around the world, satellite photos, showing the alien ships, technical readouts of their capabilities, projections of what would happen if humanity surrendered. "These beings don't want to negotiate with us. They don't want to be our friends. They want us to be their servants, and if we refuse, they will kill us all. Our governments know this, but they're paralyzed by politics and procedure. We don't have time for politics." The images changed to show preparations already underway. Factories being converted to weapons production, military units being coordinated across national boundaries, scientists sharing research that had been classified just hours before. "I'm not asking you to trust me because I'm a good person," Nari said. "I'm asking you to trust me because I'm the only person willing to do what needs to be done. In the next few days, I will ask things of you that seem impossible. I will coordinate efforts across every country, every culture, every language on this planet. And I will do it because our survival depends on it." She stood up, and the camera pulled back to show her in the warehouse command center, surrounded by screens showing data from around the world. The age of nations fighting each other while threats destroy us from outside is over. Today, we are no longer Americans or Chinese or Russians or Koreans. Today, we are humans, and humans do not surrender. The broadcast ended, but Phoenix continued, working. Across the globe, systems that had never communicated before began sharing information. Military networks that had been designed to fight each other started coordinating defense plans. Scientific databases that had been restricted by national security concerns opened their files to researchers worldwide. In the warehouse, Nari sat back in her chair, exhausted. "That's it," she said quietly. "We've crossed the line. There's no going back now." "Any regrets?" Hyunwoo asked. She looked at the countdown timer showing 14 hours until the alien deadline. "Ask me again in 2 weeks. If we're all still alive, maybe I'll have regrets about how I did this. But right now, I regret that I waited so long to do it." So-Jin was monitoring alien communications from the debris they had recovered. "The ships are responding to something. Their energy signatures just changed." "They know we're organizing," Minho said, watching network traffic spike as Phoenix coordinated responses across 6 continents simultaneously. "They can probably detect the increased coordination in our systems." Nari smiled grimly. "Good. Let them know we're not the same helpless planet they thought they were conquering. Let them know that humans fight back. 14 hours until the deadline. 14 hours to prepare for a war that would determine whether humanity had a future And for the first time since the alien ships had appeared, Earth was ready to give them a fight they would never forget. With 12 hours left until the alien deadline, Nari had transformed the abandoned warehouse into the nerve center of human civilization. Dozens of military personnel worked alongside scientists, engineers, and hackers from around the world, all connected through Phoenix's network. The AI had made it possible for experts in Tokyo to collaborate instantly with teams in London, São Paulo, and Nairobi. "Status report," Nari called out as she walked between workstations. Commander An Ji-hai, who had arrived 6 hours earlier with a team of Korean Special Forces, looked up from a tactical display. "We've established unified command structures on every continent. Phoenix is coordinating military units that have never worked together before, and somehow it's actually working. How many active personnel do we have?" 47 million military and emergency personnel worldwide, all connected through the network. Phoenix is managing communication in 93 different languages simultaneously. Nari nodded and moved to the next station, where engineer Yoon Tae-min was bent over alien debris, surrounded by holographic displays showing energy patterns and structural analyses. "What have you learned?" she asked. Tae-min looked up, his eyes red from staring at data for hours. "Dr. Kim was right about their centralized control systems, but there's more. Look at this." He pointed to a three-dimensional model of an alien weapon. "Their energy shields operate on a specific frequency. It's incredibly efficient, almost no energy wasted. But efficiency can be a weakness." "How so?" "Because they've optimized everything for that one frequency. If we can hit them with weapons that operate on multiple frequencies simultaneously, their shields won't know how to adapt quickly enough." So-jin joined the conversation, carrying a tablet full of biological analysis data. "And there's something else. I've been studying the alien bodies we recovered from the crashed probes. They're not entirely biological." She showed them microscopic images that looked like a blend of organic tissue and mechanical components. "They're cyborgs, part living creature, part machine. The biological parts handle creativity and adaptation, while the mechanical parts provide enhanced strength and processing power. That explains their technology," Nari realized. "They combine biological intuition with mechanical precision. It's brilliant. But it's also a limitation," So-jin continued. "The biological and mechanical systems have to stay in perfect balance. If you disrupt that balance, the whole system breaks down," Tae-min finished. "Nari, if we can create weapons that specifically target the interface between their biological and mechanical systems, we might be able to disable them without having to overpower their superior technology." Nari felt a surge of hope. "How long to develop these weapons?" "With Phoenix coordinating global manufacturing and research, we could have prototypes in 8 hours, full production in 24 hours. Do it." She moved to another station where Minho was managing global communications. Thousands of screens showed data feeds from around the world. Factory production lines being converted, military units moving into position, civilians evacuating from major cities. "How are people responding?" she asked. Minho pulled up social, media feeds, news reports, and communication intercepts. "Better than expected, actually. Once they saw that we were actually doing something concrete instead of just talking, most people started cooperating. There are some protests, some panic, but overall, people want to help." "What about the governments?" "Officially, they're condemning what we've done and demanding that we return control of their systems. Unofficially, most of their military and intelligence personnel are quietly cooperating with us. They know we're their best chance." Nari allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The plan was working better than she had dared to hope. But they still faced an enemy with technology centuries ahead of their own. "Phoenix," she said aloud, knowing the AI was monitoring all communications. "Yes, Dr. Lee?" The voice came from speakers throughout the warehouse. Phoenix had developed a calm, efficient speaking style that somehow managed to sound reassuring rather than mechanical. "Show me global production status." Holographic displays appeared throughout the room, showing real-time data from factories on every continent. Weapons production is ahead of schedule, Phoenix reported. I have optimized manufacturing processes by eliminating redundant steps and coordinating supply chains globally. We will have sufficient equipment for initial engagement in 6 hours. What about defensive preparations? Evacuation of major population centers is 73% complete. Underground shelters are being prepared for civilians who cannot evacuate. Military forces are positioned according to the tactical plans developed by Commander An and her team. Commander An looked up from her displays. Nari, we need to talk about strategy. We're not going to win this by fighting them the way they expect us to fight. What do you mean? They're used to conquering civilizations that fight like they do. Big ships, centralized command, predictable tactics. But humans have always been guerrilla fighters when we're outmatched. We need to use that. She brought up a tactical map showing the positions of alien ships around the world. Instead of trying to match their firepower, we hit them from everywhere at once. Small, fast attacks from unexpected directions. Make them divide their attention across thousands of targets instead of focusing on a few big ones. Coordinating. That many separate attacks would be impossible for human commanders, Hyunwoo pointed out. But not for Phoenix, Nari realized. The AI can coordinate millions of individual actions simultaneously while maintaining overall strategic coherence. Exactly. We let Phoenix handle the coordination while human commanders handle the creativity and adaptation that machines can't match. Nari looked around the room at the organized chaos of preparation. Scientists were designing new weapons based on alien weaknesses. Engineers were modifying existing equipment for unconventional tactics. Military personnel were training civilians in basic combat techniques, and Phoenix was orchestrating all of it with an efficiency that no human organization had ever achieved. There's something else we need to consider, Sojin said quietly. What happens if we actually win this? The question made everyone pause. They had been so focused on survival that they hadn't thought much about success. I mean, we're fundamentally changing how human civilization operates, Sojin continued. After this is over, will we go back to having separate countries with separate governments? Can we go back? Nari considered the question. Through Phoenix, she now had more power than any human in history. She could control every aspect of modern life, coordinate the actions of billions of people, direct the resources of the entire planet. It was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. One crisis at a time, she said finally. Right now, our only goal is to survive the next 24 hours. If we succeed, we'll figure out what comes next. But even as she said it, she knew that Sojin was right. They weren't just fighting for humanity's survival. They were creating something entirely new. Whatever emerged from this conflict would be fundamentally different from the world that had existed before the alien ships arrived. 5 hours until deadline, Phoenix announced. All systems are ready for engagement. Nari looked at the countdown timer and felt a strange calm settle over her. They had done everything possible to prepare. The weapons were built, the defenses were in place, and Phoenix had coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Now they would find out if it was enough. This is it, she said to the room. In 5 hours, we find out what humans are really capable of when we work together. Outside, the alien ships waited in silence, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that the primitives below had just invented an entirely new way of making war. The 72-hour deadline arrived with an alien broadcast that echoed across every communication device on Earth. The voice was the same cold, mechanical tone they had heard 3 days earlier, but now it carried a note of impatience. People of Earth, your time has expired. You have chosen resistance over submission. Your destruction will now begin. Nari stood in the command center, watching as energy signatures spiked on the alien ships. Around her, dozens of operators monitored, feeds from across the globe, while Phoenix coordinated the largest military operation in human history. "They're powering weapons," Sojin reported from her monitoring station. "Energy levels are increasing on all ships simultaneously." "Phoenix, are our people in position?" Nari asked. "All units are ready," the AI responded. 47 million. Personnel coordinated across 12,000 separate locations. Weapon systems optimized for multi-frequency engagement. Civilian evacuation 91% complete in target zones. The first alien attack began over New York City. A beam of pure energy lanced down from the massive ship, aimed at the city center. But instead of finding a helpless target, it struck a series of specially positioned mirrors that scattered the beam's energy across a wide area. The attack that should have vaporized Manhattan instead created a spectacular light show that barely damaged a few empty buildings. "Now!" Nari shouted. Phoenix activated the global counterattack with perfect timing. From thousands of locations around New York, missiles launched simultaneously. But these weren't ordinary weapons. They were Taemin's multi-frequency energy disruptors, designed specifically to overwhelm alien shield systems. The alien ship's shields flared as they tried to adapt to the incoming weapons, but the disruptors hit on 17 different frequencies at once. For 3 seconds, the shields flickered and failed. In that brief window, conventional weapons found their mark. Explosions blossomed across the ship's hull as human technology finally drew alien. "Blood! Direct hits!" Commander On reported. "The New York ship is damaged, but still functional." But the success in New York was just the beginning. Across the globe, the same scene played out over every major city. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Sao Paulo, Cairo. Everywhere the aliens had positioned their ships, they found themselves facing coordinated attacks from multiple directions. The aliens had expected panic and disorganization. Instead, they faced something they had never encountered before: a planetary defense network that operated as a single coordinated entity. Every attack was met with an immediate, precisely timed counterattack. Every tactical move was anticipated and countered. "Their communication patterns are changing," Minho reported, monitoring alien transmissions. "They're trying to coordinate a new strategy, but Phoenix is jamming their signals every time they attempt to establish a clear command link." The AI had learned to predict alien communication protocols from the debris Sojin had analyzed. Now, it was using that knowledge to disrupt their coordination, turning their own centralized command structure against them. "Ship over Berlin is retreating," came a report from European Command. "They're pulling back from the city." "Mumbai ship is also withdrawing," added the Asian coordinator. Nari felt a surge of excitement, but she forced herself to stay focused. "Don't let them regroup. Phoenix, maintain pressure on all targets." The coordinated attack continued for 6 hours. Human forces used tactics the aliens had never seen before. Swarm attacks from multiple directions, weapons that changed frequency mid-flight, defensive systems that adapted in real time to alien countermeasures. Most importantly, they used their numbers. For every human unit the aliens destroyed, 10 more appeared from different directions, but the aliens were adapting too. After losing 3 ships to the coordinated attacks, they began using different tactics. Instead of staying stationary over cities, they started moving, making it harder for human forces to predict their positions. "They're learning," Hyun-woo observed. "Each attack pattern they only fall for once." "Good," Nari said. "Let them learn. We'll learn faster." She was right. Phoenix was analyzing every alien response, every tactical change, every adaptation. The AI was learning their patterns faster than they could learn human patterns, and it was sharing that knowledge instantly with every human unit on the planet. The battle reached a turning point over the Pacific Ocean. One of the alien ships had been severely damaged in the initial attacks and was attempting to retreat to space. As it climbed through the atmosphere, Phoenix coordinated a final strike from orbital platforms that humanity had secretly positioned weeks earlier. The dying ship crashed into the ocean with a splash visible from orbit. For the first time in 3 days, one of the massive alien vessels was completely destroyed. The explosion was seen around the world, and the psychological impact was immediate. Humanity had proven that the aliens could be beaten. The invincible conquerors were not invincible after all. "We need to press the advantage," Commander An said. "They're regrouping, but they're also demoralized. This is our chance to drive them off completely." Nari nodded, but she was thinking beyond this immediate battle. "Phoenix, what's the status of our captured alien technology?" 7 intact ships have been secured for analysis. Dr. Kim's team has identified recoverable navigation systems, communication equipment, and propulsion technology. Preliminary analysis suggests we can reverse engineer their faster-than-light travel capabilities. So Jin looked up from her biological analysis station. "Nari, you need to see this. I've been studying the alien bodies we recovered from the crashed ship. They're not just cyborgs. They're connected to some kind of central network. Each individual is receiving constant updates and coordination from a central source. Like a hive mind? More sophisticated than that. They maintain individual consciousness but share tactical information instantly. It's actually similar to what Phoenix does for our forces, except their system is biological rather than technological." Nari realized the implications immediately. If they're networked, then they're probably reporting everything that happens here to their home base. The Empire knows we defeated their advance force, which means they'll send a larger force next time, Hyunwoo concluded. "Not if we don't give them the chance," Nari said firmly. "Phoenix, how long until we can have functional faster-than-light ships? Based on captured alien technology and current human manufacturing capabilities, I estimate 6 months for prototype vessels, 18 months for a functional fleet." "Too long. If they send reinforcements, they'll be here in weeks, not months." She looked around the command center at the faces of people who had helped her accomplish the impossible. 3 days ago, they had been a scattered group of individuals. Now they were the command structure of a unified planetary defense force that had just defeated an alien invasion. "We're not going to wait for them to come back," she announced. "We're going to take the fight to them." The room fell silent. The idea of humans launching an interstellar military campaign seemed absurd. But then again, 3 days ago, the idea of one person taking control of Earth's entire technological infrastructure had seemed absurd too. "Phoenix," Nari continued, "begin analyzing captured alien star charts. I want to know where they came from and how to get there. We're going to show the Kirvani Empire what happens when they threaten humanity." Outside, the surviving alien ships were retreating into space, their invasion force broken and demoralized. They had come to conquer a primitive world and instead had encountered something they never expected. A species that could adapt, learn, and fight back more effectively than anything in their experience. As the last alien ship disappeared into the darkness of space, Nari allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but she knew this was only the beginning. The real fight was just getting started. 6 months after the failed alien invasion, Nari stood in what had once been the International Space Station, but was now the command center for humanity's first interstellar fleet. Through the observation windows, she could see dozens of ships. Under construction, vessels that combined human engineering with captured alien technology. The war had changed everything. The old national boundaries still existed on paper, but Phoenix now coordinated a truly global civilization. Resources flowed to where they were needed most. Scientists shared research without restriction, and military forces operated as a single, unified command. "The shipyard in lunar orbit is ahead of schedule," reported Captain Lee Dong-hyuk, who had been promoted from commercial pilot to fleet commander in record time. "We'll have 12 ships ready for the first expedition within the week." Nari nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed ship positions throughout the solar system. Humanity had not been idle since the invasion. Phoenix had coordinated the largest construction project in human history, building shipyards, weapons factories, and research facilities from Earth to Mars. What about crew training? Every pilot has at least 100 hours in the simulators Phoenix developed. The AI reverse-engineered alien navigation systems and created training programs that compress years of experience into months of intensive simulation. Tae-min joined the conversation, carrying a tablet full of engineering specifications. The new ships are ready for combat testing. We've improved on the alien design in several key areas. How so? Their ships are built for efficiency and standardization. Every vessel in their fleet is essentially identical, but we've customized each of our ships for specific mission profiles. Some are optimized for speed and reconnaissance, others for heavy combat, others for long-range exploration. So Jin approached from the biological research section, where she had been studying alien biology for months. I've made a breakthrough in understanding their hive network system. It's not as unified as we initially thought. She brought up a holographic display showing complex neural patterns. Each alien individual maintains some degree of independent thought, but they're constantly receiving updates from a central command network. The interesting thing is that the network has limited range, about the distance of a solar system. What does that mean for us? Nari asked. It means that once we leave their home system, we'll be facing aliens who are cut off from their central coordination. They'll have to rely on their individual intelligence and whatever tactical knowledge they have stored locally. Nari felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of advantage they needed. Phoenix, what's our current intelligence on the Kirvani home system? Based on star charts recovered from captured ships and analysis of their navigation data, the Kirvani Empire is centered around a red giant star approximately 47 light-years from Earth. The system contains at least 12 planets, with the primary population centers on the third and fifth planets. Population estimates? Insufficient data for accurate assessment. However, based on the size of the invasion force they sent to Earth and the industrial capacity suggested by their technology, I estimate between 50 billion and 200 billion individuals across the entire empire. The numbers were staggering, but Nari had learned not to be intimidated by impossible odds. 3 days ago, one person taking control of Earth's technology had seemed impossible too. Captain Lee, are your ships ready for a reconnaissance mission? Dong-hyuk straightened. Ready and waiting for orders. Then let's go introduce ourselves. To the Kirvani Empire. 2 weeks later, the first human interstellar expedition departed from lunar orbit. 12 ships, each crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return to Earth, set course for a red giant star that most humans had never heard of. The journey took 3 weeks using alien faster-than-light technology that human scientists still didn't fully understand. But Phoenix had learned to operate the systems reliably, and the AI guided the small fleet through the complex calculations required for interstellar travel. When they arrived at the edge of the Kirvani system, what they found surprised everyone. This doesn't look like the center of a galactic empire, Dong-hyuk reported over the communication link. I'm seeing industrial activity, but not nearly as much as we expected. Nari studied the sensor data from her command ship. The system was inhabited, but the level of activity seemed almost normal. Not the massive industrial complex she had expected from a species that could launch interstellar invasions. Phoenix analysis? The industrial output is consistent. With a population of approximately 10 billion individuals, not the hundreds of billions we estimated. This appears to be a regional center rather than the empire's primary base, meaning there are other systems, bigger systems. That would be the logical conclusion. So Jin was monitoring alien communications from her position at the sensor station. I'm picking up transmissions between the planets. They're confused. They keep talking about the primitive world that fought back and impossible tactical adaptations. They're scared, Nari realized. They've never encountered organized resistance before. Hyun Woo, who had insisted on joining the expedition despite his administrative responsibilities, was studying tactical displays. Look at their ship positions. They're not deployed for offense. They're arranged in defensive formations around the major population centers. They think we're going to attack them, Dong-hyuk observed. Nari made a decision that would change the course of the war. Open a communication channel to the largest population center. Nari, are you sure about this? Hyun-woo asked. We don't know what we're dealing with. Yes, I do. We're dealing with bullies who are used to picking on civilizations that can't fight back. But when someone fights back effectively, bullies usually turn into cowards. The communication channel opened, and Nari's image was transmitted to the Kirvani homeworld. Within minutes, she received a response. A group of aliens who appeared to be government officials, all looking distinctly nervous. Primitive humans, one of them said in the same mechanical voice they had heard during the invasion. You should not be here. This system is protected by the Kirvani defense fleet. Your defense fleet looks worried, Nari replied calmly. I wonder why that is. There was a long pause before the alien responded. What do you want? Information. We want to know how big your empire really is, how many other species you've conquered, and whether any of them have ever fought back successfully. Another pause. We will not provide strategic information to enemies. We're not your enemies, Nari said. We're something you've never encountered before. We're a species that refuses to be conquered. But we're also not interested in conquering you. We want to know about the others. Others? The other species you've enslaved, the other civilizations you've destroyed. Are any of them still fighting? The alien's expression changed, a subtle shift that So-jin immediately noticed. There are no others, it said, but its voice carried a note of uncertainty. Phoenix, Nari said quietly. Are you detecting any other species technology in this system? Affirmative. I am detecting at least 4 distinct technological signatures that do not match Kirvani patterns. The aliens appear to be using technologies developed by other species. Nari smiled as she realized what this meant. The Kirvani Empire wasn't a single species conquering the galaxy. It was a collection of conquered species being forced to work together under Kirvani leadership. We know about the others, she told the alien officials. We know you're forcing other species to build your technology, fight your wars, maintain your empire. The question is, what do you think those species will do when they learn that someone successfully fought back against you? The alien's mechanical voice carried a hint of fear. You cannot contact them. They are loyal to the empire. Are they? Or are they just afraid of you? There's a difference. She ended the transmission and turned to her crew. We're not just fighting one species. We're looking at a galactic empire built on oppression and fear. And we've just proven that the oppressors can be beaten. What's our next move? Dong-hyuk asked. Nari looked at the displays showing the positions of Kirvani ships, the industrial facilities, the communication networks that connected this system to others throughout their empire. We're going to do something the Kirvani never expected, she said. We're going to start a revolution. Nari's revolution began with a simple broadcast transmitted across the Kirvani communication network. Phoenix had spent weeks learning their systems, and now the AI could insert human messages into their supposedly secure channels. The message went out simultaneously to 47 star systems across the empire. To all species under Kirvani rule, you are not alone. Resistance is possible. We are proof. Within hours, the responses began flooding in. Not from the Kirvani leadership, but from the enslaved populations they controlled. Messages in dozens of different languages and communication protocols, all saying essentially the same thing. How? Dr. Park Eun-ji, a former diplomat who had joined the expedition, worked around the clock to establish communication with the various species. Her team had to learn new languages, decipher alien cultural concepts, and build trust with beings who had never imagined freedom was possible. The Vorthak were the first species the Kirvani conquered, about 300 years ago, she reported to Nari during a briefing. They're the ones who developed most of the advanced technology the Empire uses, but they've been trying to sabotage their own creations for decades. What about the others? The Zephyrian Collective used to be a peaceful trading federation before the Kirvani enslaved them. They control most of the Empire's logistics and supply networks. The Helios tribes were a warrior culture that fought the Kirvani for 50 years before finally being defeated. They're now forced to serve as shock troops. Nari studied the data Phoenix had compiled from intercepted communications. Each species has something unique to contribute to a resistance movement. The Vorthak have the technical knowledge, the Zephyrians control supply lines, and the Helios have military experience. But they're scattered across dozens of star systems, and they've never been able to coordinate with each other. The Kirvani made sure of that. Phoenix can change that, Nari realized. We can provide them with something they've never had: secure communication across their entire empire. Over the following months, Phoenix worked tirelessly to establish a secret communication network that connected resistance cells throughout Kirvani space. The AI learned to mimic each species' communication protocols, hide messages within legitimate traffic, and coordinate activities across vast distances. The first coordinated resistance action was a test, a simultaneous shutdown of manufacturing facilities on 12 different worlds. For exactly 1 hour, production stopped across a significant portion of the Empire. The message was clear: the enslaved species could work together when properly coordinated. The Kirvani response was swift and brutal. They increased security, executed suspected rebels, and implemented new surveillance systems. But they made a crucial mistake. They tried to solve the problem with more centralized control, which only made Phoenix's job easier. They're reacting exactly as we hoped, Minho reported from his position monitoring Kirvani security networks. Every new security measure they implement gives Phoenix more access to their systems. What about military resistance? Commander An asked. She had insisted on joining the expedition to coordinate combat operations with allied species. The Helios tribes are ready to begin armed resistance, Hyunwoo reported. But they need weapons and coordination. Their warriors are brave, but they've been disarmed for generations. Nari made another decisive choice. We're going to arm them. Phoenix, begin transferring weapon blueprints and manufacturing techniques to resistance cells throughout the Empire. Focus on weapons that can be built using commonly available materials. That's a massive risk, Sojin warned. If the Kirvani trace those plans back to us, they'll know exactly where we are and what we're capable of. Let them know, Nari said firmly. We want them to know that we're not just defending ourselves anymore. We're actively working to destroy their empire. The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, the Kirvani Empire went from ruling through fear to fighting for survival. Coordinated uprisings broke out across dozens of worlds. Supply lines were disrupted. Key facilities were sabotaged. Most importantly, the different enslaved species began working together in ways the Kirvani had spent centuries preventing. The Vorthak have developed new weapon designs specifically for the Helios warriors, Yunji reported during a strategic briefing. Meanwhile, the Zephyrians are using their control of shipping networks to smuggle weapons and supplies to resistance cells. And Phoenix is coordinating all of it, Nari added with satisfaction. For the first time in their history, the Kirvani are facing an organized, multi-species alliance. But the war was far from over. The Kirvani still controlled the most heavily defended systems, and they had centuries of experience in suppressing rebellions. Their response to the uprising was to consolidate their forces and launch massive counterattacks against rebel strongholds. They're adapting, Dong Hyuk warned. The latest intelligence shows they're pulling back from the outer systems and concentrating their forces around their core worlds. They're willing to give up territory to maintain control of their population centers. Smart strategy, Commander An agreed. But it also means they're admitting they can't control their entire empire anymore. Nari studied the tactical displays showing the current state of the Galactic War. Red zones marked Kirvani-controlled systems. Blue zones showed areas under Allied control, and purple zones indicated contested systems where fighting was ongoing. We need to accelerate the timeline, she decided. Phoenix, what's the status of our fleet construction back home? Earth-based shipyards have completed. Construction of 47 interstellar vessels. Mars facilities have produced an additional 31 ships. Luna yards are focusing on specialized reconnaissance and communication vessels. And crew training? All vessels are fully crewed with trained personnel. Additionally, I have established automated systems that allow smaller crews to operate larger ships more efficiently. Nari looked around at her command staff, people who had started this journey as defenders of a single world and had become the leadership of a galactic revolution. It's time for the final phase, she announced. We're going to take the war directly to the Kirvani core systems, not just to defeat them, but to liberate every enslaved population they control. That's going to require a massive coordinated assault, Hyunwoo warned. We'll be facing their best defenses and their most experienced military units. Yes, but we'll also have something they've never faced before, a coordinated attack by every species they've ever conquered, all working together with shared technology and unified command. Yoonji looked concerned. What about after? If we succeed in destroying the Kirvani Empire, what happens to all these different species? They've been enslaved for centuries. Do we just leave them to figure out independence on their own? It was the same question So-Jin had asked months earlier about human government after the invasion. But now Nari had a clearer answer. We helped them build something better than what came before. Not a human empire replacing a Kirvani empire, but a true federation where every species contributes according to their strengths and no one is forced to serve anyone else. She turned to Phoenix's main interface. AI, begin preparations for the largest military operation in galactic history. We're going to end this war and build a peace that will last for centuries. The response came in Phoenix's calm, efficient voice. Understood. Initiating coordination protocols for multi-species fleet operations. Estimated time to readiness, 6 weeks. 6 weeks to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds and billions of beings. 6 weeks to transform a desperate defense of Earth into the foundation of a new galactic order. As Nari looked out at the stars, she realized that the girl who had started this journey in a basement laboratory had become something she never expected, the architect of galactic civilization itself. The final battle for the Kirvani homeworld began with the largest coordinated military operation in galactic history. Nari stood on the bridge of her flagship as more than 300 ships from 6 different species converged on the Red Giant, system that had been the center of oppression for 3 centuries. Fleet positions confirmed, Captain Dong-hyuk reported. Human vessels are in Formation Alpha. Vorthak technical ships are providing electronic warfare support. Helios battlecruisers are moving to assault positions. Zephyrian supply vessels are maintaining logistics coordination. Phoenix's voice filled the bridge. All species communication networks are synchronized. Tactical coordination is optimal. Estimated success probability 73%. Nari knew that in any normal military operation, 73% would be considered excellent odds. But this wasn't a normal operation. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and failure would mean the end of everything they had built. What about the other enslaved species? She asked. Resistance cells on 41 worlds have begun simultaneous uprisings, Commander An reported, from the tactical station. The Kirvani are having to divide their attention between defending their homeworld and suppressing rebellions throughout their empire. The battle began when the Kirvani defense fleet moved to intercept the Allied forces. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything the Allies possessed. But they were fighting according to centuries-old tactical doctrines against an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Vorthak ships are jamming their communication networks, Sojin reported from her monitoring station. The Kirvani can't coordinate their defense properly. Helios battle groups are using hit-and-run tactics, added Hyun-woo. They're drawing the heavy Kirvani ships away from their defensive positions. And our ships are exploiting the gaps, Dong-hyuk concluded with satisfaction. Same multi-frequency weapons that worked against their invasion force, but now we have 6 different species contributing to the design. The space battle raged for 18 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Kirvani had superior individual ships, but they were facing an enemy that adapted faster than they could respond. Every tactical move was countered, every strategy was anticipated, every weakness was exploited by an alliance that had learned to think and fight as one. When the last Kirvani defense ship surrendered, Nari found herself facing a choice she had never wanted to make. Phoenix could have destroyed the remaining ships easily, but that wasn't what this war had been about. Open a communication channel to the Kirvani government, she ordered. The response came from the surface of the homeworld. A group of aliens who looked defeated and desperate. "What are your terms?" their leader asked. "Unconditional surrender of all military forces, immediate release of all enslaved populations, full cooperation with the establishment of a new galactic government based on freedom and equality for all species. And if we refuse?" Nari looked around at her bridge crew. Humans, Vorthak, Helios, and Zephyrians all working together seamlessly. "Then we'll do what we've been doing for the past year. We'll keep fighting until every enslaved being in your empire is free." The surrender came 6 hours later. But Nari's real work was just beginning. Establishing the Galactic Federation turned out to be more challenging than fighting the war. Each species had different governments, different cultures, different ideas about how civilization should be organized. The Vorthak were used to technical meritocracy. The Helios preferred warrior councils. The Zephyrians wanted democratic trade guilds. Even the humans were divided between those who wanted to return to national governments and those who preferred Phoenix's unified coordination. "We need a system that works for everyone," Yoonji said during one of the countless constitutional conferences. But everyone wants something different. Nari had been thinking about this problem for months. What if we don't try to make everyone the same? What if we build a system that allows each species to govern itself while coordinating on issues that affect everyone? A federal system, Tae-min realized. Each species maintains internal autonomy, but participates in shared institutions for defense, trade, and scientific cooperation, with Phoenix providing the communication and coordination infrastructure that makes it all possible, Minho added. The solution they developed was elegant in its complexity. The Galactic Federation consisted of autonomous species governments that coordinated through shared institutions. Phoenix evolved from a military AI into a diplomatic facilitator, translating between different languages and cultures, coordinating joint projects, and ensuring that no single species could dominate the others. But the most important innovation was the Council of Worlds, a governing body where each species had representation proportional to their population, but no single species could control more than 30% of the vote. It forced cooperation and compromise while preventing any form of domination. "It's not perfect," Nari admitted to her inner circle as they watched the first formal session of the Galactic Council. "But it's better than what came before, and it can evolve as we learn how to work together better." So Jin smiled. "You know, when this started, I was worried about what would happen to humanity if we won. Now I'm wondering what we've become." "What do you mean? Look around." Sojin gestured to the council chamber where representatives from a dozen species were debating trade regulations in 6 different languages. "A year ago, we were one species fighting for survival. Now we're part of something bigger than any single world or culture." Nari watched a Vorthak technical expert explaining quantum engineering concepts to a Helios warrior scholar while Phoenix translated in real time. "We're still human," she said, "but we're also something more. Now, we're galactic citizens." The transformation didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years to fully establish the Federation's institutions, 5 years to develop stable trade relationships between species, and nearly a decade to create educational exchange programs that allowed young beings from different worlds to learn about each other's cultures. But it worked. The galaxy that had been ruled by fear and oppression became a place of cooperation and discovery. Scientific knowledge flowed freely between species. Trade flourished as each world contributed its unique resources and capabilities. Most importantly, conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than conquest. Nari, now recognized as the Great Unifier, often reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. She had started as a desperate scientist trying to save her home world. She had become the leader of a global resistance, then a galactic revolutionary, and finally the architect of a new form of civilization. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came 15 years after the Federation's founding, when she received a message from Earth. It was from a group of school children who had been born after the war, asking if she would visit their class to talk about history. "They don't see the war as the most important thing we did," she told Phoenix during their regular consultation sessions. "To them, the Federation is just how the galaxy has always worked." "Is that not the ultimate measure of success?" the AI replied. "When the extraordinary becomes ordinary, it means the change has become permanent." Nari smiled. Phoenix had developed something approaching wisdom over the years, growing from a tool of war into a partner in building peace. She looked out the window of her office on the Federation capital world, a planet that had been jointly terraformed by all member species as a symbol of their cooperation. Ships from dozens of worlds moved through the orbital traffic patterns, carrying goods, people, and ideas across the galaxy. The girl who had once taken control of Earth's networks to save humanity had helped create something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization based on freedom, cooperation, and the belief that differences in species, culture, and thinking were strengths rather than weaknesses. As she prepared for another day of the slow, patient work of maintaining galactic peace, Nari allowed herself a moment of quiet, satisfaction. They had not just survived the crisis that had threatened to destroy them. They had used it as the foundation for building something better than anyone had ever imagined possible. The future belonged to all of them, together.